started trickling in at dawn at the Abuabo School Park. By 8 a.m., the park was filled with a sizable number of people. Then the placards arrived with messages that summed up the objectives of the protest. They want the Electoral Commission to back down on its decision to create a new voters register and use the budgeted funds to ease the lives of Ghanaians. A number of personalities joined hands. They included some members of parliament, leaders of political groupings and parties, and leadership of the National Democratic Congress. They passed through principal streets of Kumasi, Alaba, Ashtown, Imrom, Kejitia, Pampaso, Edum, and Asafo. The protest was full of drama. Occasional stops which saw leaders sitting on the ground and wailing. Finally, they converged at the Jubilee Park, where speakers Asiedun Kitia, NDC Chairman Ofusu Ampofo, and Bernard Mona of the PNC, among others, addressed the crowd.
The NDC together with the other parties now, you form coalition, and the civil society for no. We will suspend our demonstration and wait on the eminent personalities, traditional authorities. Nananuma infuna so form penifua. One do one to no. Near your concern, you mammy Mensa and the commission, Ebetia Omo Cano. Nayan Nasim Konya, near your coin Bafasua, you bet me at Tuniama, and my gun after to my papa.
Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asaridonko, Kumasi.
Yeah. All of that went down yesterday when protesters hit the streets in Kumasi, demonstrating against the plans of the Electoral Commission to introduce or to compile a new biometric voters register for the 2020 election. Our guest this morning is Dr. Clement Apaak. He's a member of Parliament for Bulsa South. He's a member of a number of committees in Parliament, including the Apaak, Public Accounts Committee. So we'll be speaking a little bit about
it. That's sort of closer to my name.
Yes, indeed, yes. Dr. Apaak of Apaak. Yeah.
The days I used to rhyme probably would have dropped a tune by now.
You see. So yeah, we'll be hearing from Dr. Apaak on Apaak and a few other things on the show. But Doc, it's nice to see you as always. Thank you so much for coming.
It's always a pleasure, Kojo. Let me say Happy New Year.
I mean, yes.
It just dawned on me that this is my first appearance
this year.
Since this year began.
True,
so
true.
Happy New Year.
Same to you. Same to you. All right. So, well, let's dig in. This is the most recent thing, the demonstration yesterday. And I think we understand the position of the NDC on this matter, and a number of other parties, because some other parties have joined in calling for the plans of the EC to be scrapped. Now, yesterday, I attempted to ask two other politicians, what would the middle ground be? What would be an acceptable solution to both sides? I know that the National Identification Authority has suggested that if they were to be supported, they could complete their work by June, in which case the EC could then simply do an exhibition, if you will, to identify polling stations from the over 18 data from the NIA, and that would cut out the need for a new register. But the issue of the machines would still remain.
That's right.
But at least the EC says that if the NIA could finish, that would be useful. In fact, Madam Jean Mensah said that to a room full of journalists. So we know that. But would that be acceptable to the NDC?
Well, Kojo, first of all, let me say good morning to viewers and to my constituents, the people of Bulsa South. You know, we are headquartered in Fumbisi. And so Bulsangamena, ma pusin mena tene soluk, atene bempale. The issue at hand is a very dicey issue that has the potential of fermenting chaos as we prepare towards the 2020 election. I say so because we all know that in a democracy, there are stakeholders. And of course, by virtue of the nature of our constitution, we all recognize that there is a body which is mandated to superintend over any and everything to do with conducting an election. In this case, the Electoral Commission. If you like, in the much more popular Ghanaian parlance, the Electoral Commission is supposed to be the referee in a game that is to be played by teams. Well, the teams are many, but in the era of the Fourth Republic of Ghana, we all know that when we speak about the teams, we all know who the stakeholders are. But it is not only the political parties that are stakeholders. We have civil society, we have the clergy, we even have organized labor, and all other recognized persons and individuals and groups. We all have a stake in what goes on and how we want to shape our destiny, because the whole purpose of conducting an election is to allow for the people to be able to decide those that they want to entrust with their power or their mandate, with the hope that those persons would then use that to improve their conditions of life. We have never challenged the authority of the Electoral Commission. Our problem, as you have seen the narrative unfold over the past few days, is that there's not been utmost transparency about the plan and the agenda and the intent of the Electoral Commission. Now, when that came to light, and our party sought to get more information based on pronouncements made by those leading the Electoral Commission with regards to why the current database perhaps cannot hold its own, the fact that perhaps some BVDs, or if you like, the verification machines may not be functioning well, arguments about the contract and the company responsible saying that it was going into oblivion, essentially, you know, becoming obsolete. And so we said, let us see the needed documentation. You say you have, you know, expert reports, you have analysis have been done, and we said, present those to us. Let's also verify. And then let's also be convinced that these arguments that you are putting forth as a justification for a new register are indeed valid, that we can all agree this has not happened. And I think that what is even making the situation a lot more worrisome is the perception many of us have that the Electoral Commission has tried to pull a fast one. We were there when we heard about the advisory of imminent persons. And so in the wake of this debate, where we have said that there was no need for the new register and that we could simply upgrade the old one and then fix the few challenges thereof in terms of getting new software, and even if there's a need to procure components of hardware, that can be done. The advisory committee issued a communique asking for calm to prevail. And I remember in that communique, they indicated, or in fact, they indicated that they expected the Electoral Commission to engage further stakeholders. And I would have assumed that would include civil society and political parties like the NDC and other political parties opposed to the compilation of the new register. But whilst that admonishment had come and we had accepted in good faith, waiting for the sort of suggestion that was made to be given effect by the EC, Then we hear EC officials making emphatic statements, presupposing that they had already made a decision, they were going to move ahead, and they only wanted to convey their justification to those of us who are resisting this exercise, not just because we don't think it is being justified technically, but also it is not being justified in terms of the finances. So then what is the point of asking us to calm down?
You're referring to what the EC official said on Newsfile?
Yes.
When he said it's a done deal.
That is correct.
The suggestion here is that he's referring to the fact that it's got parliamentary approval. They've even contracted one company to do a part of the work. So I guess when he says it's a done deal, I mean, he's not being inaccurate.
I'm not saying he's being inaccurate, but the laws are made, right, for man. Man is not made for the laws. I'm not saying that, we shouldn't obey rules and regulations. But when you have a situation like this that has the potential of creating chaos, a very volatile situation of this nature, you must rethink. I mean, simply because Parliament has given approval doesn't mean that if you are going to engage in the enterprise and it cannot be justified technically and financially, and even within the much more important parameters of time and adequate preparedness, must you go ahead simply because Parliament has passed that? Which, by the way, just for the sake of education and for our viewers, there is this perception that the minority sat in Parliament, were part of that decision, and now we are holding back. We never did. I mean, it is one of the many votes that we boycotted. Our leadership, we stated our position very clearly, and when it came to take that particular vote, we walked out.
Right.
So
the vote
we
to
were
approve the
yes to approve the budget of the EC, because even then we did not believe that it was justified. We didn't believe that there was the need for us to expend that level of resource at this time for an exercise that we don't think is going to inure to the benefit of Ghanaians.
So you make this point that there's a need to rethink.
Yes, it should be possible to rethink.
That brings us back to my question, which is, would the NDC consider it a viable option to go the NIA way? So we do get a new register, but it is based on the data that the NIA has collected, which is far more in-depth and detailed than any electoral roll can ever be, and far more reliable because they will be the institution responsible for keeping that data in perpetuity going into the future.
All of this is well and good, but you and I know fully well that the NIA itself is beset with a number of challenges.
They say they can finish by June.
Well, that is what they are saying. But based on the practical evidence we have on the ground with regards to the output of their work so far, I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, it's a phantom claim. I don't see how that is going to be possible. I mean, even the regions where the exercise has been conducted, there are many people who went to the centers for days and didn't even get access to get registered. There are many others who have registered 3-4 months down the line. They have not even received their cards.
But at least we have their data. So
yes, you have the data, but there will have to be processes. There will have to be linkages, so to speak. So I don't think that at this moment in time, for the current impasse, so to speak, the NIA way is going to be the immediate solution. Because others are also raising other more critical factors that should inform the compilation of a new register. For example, do we know the current population of this country? Can you tell me what percentage of our current population is of voting age?
But why
so
is that
on what basis do you compile a register?
Why is that important?
It is important because you must know.
But if you know the number of people who are eligible to vote, what has that got to do with the number of people who want to vote?
No,
so you can discover that there are 10 million Ghanaians above 18.
Yes.
But if only 2 million of them want to vote, what's the interest of the other 8 million?
Kojo, you are actually making the case that we are making. Because we don't know all of these things, let's go with the old register. Let's go with the old register, which has the information we need.
But they say that information is outdated.
Well, if it was outdated, how come it was useful in conducting a referendum that saw the creation of new regions. How come
it was a very limited exercise?
But are they not Ghanaians? Is it not the same voting population?
What they say is that they actually employed a company to refurbish the machines.
So what is of the EC's claims and assertions are not a role of any political party, but they have seen the need to expose.
But the EC has suggested
what is going on in as far as the EC's claim is concerned.
The EC has suggested, and they've responded to these civil society organizations, saying that much as their numbers are well-intentioned, they don't speak to the specifics of the specification that the EC is procuring.
But you see, Kojo, this is where I would have thought that the EC would have taken advantage of the earlier advice by the committee of eminent personalities to engage. Remember that at the beginning of my submission, I indicated that it is because we have not received the information, we have not received the of the EC. I would have done of we have made a decision and we are going to run with it, no matter the consequences. They will have advantage to engage. So let us read.
Didn't see the NDC.
No, but we are not challenging the independence of the EC. We are talking about an action that has consequences.
But you are saying they should give
beyond
justification, right? That's what you're saying.
I'm saying that when we engage them.
And I'm saying in the past, when they've not given justification, you haven't had a problem with
they have put together their, committee. And the team of this caliber of persons advises you, the stakeholders through Apaak. I mean, at least if you would ignore what we want you to do to help us understand, to also hear us out, would you also ignore the very committee that you have put together?
So you're saying,
I think that in itself is a slap in the face of the committee, because
so you're
their
saying
suggestion.
That the EC still has not engaged stakeholders.
Well, if EC had engaged stakeholders, I don't believe yesterday's demonstration.
Because some of the parties
would have gone on.
Some of the parties say they understand, right? They get it. So is it not the same engagement they've had with the parties that has led to some parties understanding and others not understanding?
Well, we don't believe that we have been engaged, and the leadership of my party has made this very clear. Our position is resolute. We still don't believe that there's the need to compile a new register on the basis of the inability of the EC, as far as we are concerned, to demonstrate to us beyond reasonable doubt that the current equipment and the current register is not fit for purpose. I mean, the same EC boss, when she appeared before the parliamentary committee, made a comment emphatically indicating that the register was good enough. We have also raised the issue of time between now and December 7th, whether or not this is the time for us to be going out to compile a totally new register, when this register, we believe, as many others do, can be used for this particular exercise.
Right.
And I have even added the issue of not even knowing our voting population, which I think presents us with a challenge. You have mentioned the issue of the NIA, good idea, fantastic idea, but at this current stage, it is not, I think, good enough to be able to resolve this particular problem. All of these things can happen after 2020.
Right.
We have not said that we don't require a new register. We are saying the timing, the context, and the circumstances do not make that the best option in as far as our preparations towards the 2020 election are concerned. And it is very important that we are all carried along
Okay. You mentioned Kodeo earlier. We happen to have Sheikh Aremi Al-Shaibu, who is, of course, the acting chairman of Kodeo on the phone. Sheikh, good morning, and thank you for your time with us.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity.
Now, you play a very important role here, and I understand that you made some Kodeo made some submissions on the matter yesterday. Perhaps I'll let you put it in your own words.
Thank you very much. Yeah, essentially what we are saying is that we have been following with keen interest the debates surrounding the decision of the EC to compile a new voters register. We have been concerned about the temperature of the political temperature of the country and how it is rising. We have taken note of the divergence of opinion, even among the political parties. From the Apaak point of view, a section is supporting the compilation of the new voters register. A section is also opposing it. What it means to us is that even at Apaak level, there's no consensus and agreement among the political parties who have direct interest in our electoral process. And so therefore, then it leaves the EC now probably as a referee to really look forward and see what it has to do. So we associate ourselves as a body with the suggestion of the Committee of Eminent Persons of the EC to extend probably the consultations must go on, regardless wherever we have reached. We also take note that there has been arguments, for and against the technical reasons to justify the compilation of the new voters register, and even the technical reasons for which we need to overhaul the whole the biometric voter management systems of the Electoral Commission. These are facts that must be put together, and then the verification of those facts for us is something which is important. But for us also, even in the midst of the suggestion to do consultation, we also want to do that in the context of the respect for the Electoral Commission's independence to carry out its mandate. We also think that even though the Electoral Commission is independent, there are some administrative issues that are not necessarily matters of law, and so therefore they can be subjected to some consultations that will lead, to the resolution of the issues that have been raised.
And does Kodeo believe that the compilation of a voters register falls under this category of administrative processes that are not subject to law?
I mean, if you look at it critically, once it has to do with what can ensure the integrity and credibility of voters register, which lies squarely in the mandate of the EC, then EC must be allowed, in our view, to do so. But the EC should also consider the issue that once there are other stakeholders who have interest, there are areas that may be appropriate for us to listen to what others are also saying. But our main issue is that even with the Apaak position, there is no consensus among the political parties. Right. Thirdly, we are also aware that the Parliament has also given approval. In fact, that is what it means that we have reached a certain point where even our law-giving body has given its approval for the compilation of the new voters register to go on, together with other related reforms that the EC wants to do. So it becomes then a matter of law for the EC to carry on its mandate in our view. At least that is essentially that is there. But we still want to say that we do not have enough time, and so even if the EC had to go ahead with the compilation of the voters register, those concerns that have been raised must be looked into. Facts about issues of value for money that have been raised can be put on the table. And then also the issue of the suspicion, mutual suspicion between the two major political parties has been the one that has been the critical issue that has brought us to where we are at the moment. And so therefore there's a need for us to really do something about it, to reduce the suspicion and to inject more confidence in the system, so that going forward, come December 7, 2020, we should be able to have a very credible system, which as an election observation body, our interest more lies in what gives or lends more integrity and credibility to the system. And so anything that in our view will add to the integrity and the credibility of the system is something that we must go in for. But that it must also be done in a consultative framework.
Right. So in essence, you're calling for broader consultation, a consensus to be reached through negotiation. But is there time? I mean, you've raised the time constraint issue. Is there time for your call to be heeded? Does the EC not have the clock ticking in their ear? And do they not have really one course of action only at this point if they are to use a register that they believe to be credible for the next election?
Yeah, if in the view of the EC, what the EC intends to do will improve the integrity of the electoral roll and add more credibility to it, then it is good for the whole of the country. But maybe the understanding of and the justification for the EC's decision to compile new voters register is what is in contestation. And also not the contestation, but that there's even a division between a section of the political parties against others. That is why for us, in order to keep the temperature, the political temperature of the country, low, and to ensure that we maintain the harmony in the country, it doesn't make any difference or reduces the authority of the EC if we have to go ahead and then in the immediate circumstance, call those who matter around and seek to provide the necessary information that justifies the action in order to clear all the doubts. Once that has been done, and I'm sure that we'll be able to make a step forward.
Very good. All right, Sheikh Aremia Shaibu, I want to thank you very much for your time with us this morning. Sheikh Shaibu is the acting chairman of CODEO, perhaps the most prominent, most well-known observer of elections here in Ghana.
I agree.
Yes, and
so you see, by and large, his position is
yes,
very clear, and that is the point I was making. Broaden the scope of consultation. Yeah. Let stakeholders also come, hear you, present contrary evidence if they have any, so that we can move on. But when you just decide, that because the law is on your side, because the Constitution gives you your independence, you are going and as Bukum Banku says, what can come, can come. Of course, this is not going to augur well. But you see, there was an earlier issue that you raised, which got me thinking. You talked about the EC having the penchant, rightly so, to assert its independence. Nobody is arguing with that. But how come that when we had prepared, invested resources to hold a referendum about whether or not there should be the election of MMDCs, how come it was the executive president who caused a stop and not the EC?
Well,
so what does that tell you about the independence of the EC? Yeah, so the independence is not absolute. It's the point that I'm trying to make.
Yeah, but the EC still has a certain role. The EC doesn't decide whether the state must have an election.
Yes.
The EC simply referees the election once the state has decided it must have one.
So what we are doing, is that not part of the process of going towards an election, that the EC is to referee?
So what they are doing now is, the whole discussion is about the tool with which the EC will do its job. It's not about whether or not there should be an election.
Who is the EC going to do that job for?
The people of Ghana.
That is the people. So you can't say that because we are independent, you are going to ignore the concerns of the people. What if at the end of the day, you do all of this just for the sake of argument?
Yeah.
And because the people don't want it, they either disrupt the process or they refuse to go out and vote.
But you see, that brings up the other question, that are we still dealing with just the concerns of the people, or are we seeing the opposition taking hold of what is an issue that requires dialogue and turning it into an issue of contention? Because I ask this because, well, now we've had a demonstration.
Yes, and a series of them are still going to be coming up.
Indeed. We've also seen this posture where, following news file and the comment that it's a done deal, there appears to be a certain picking of that comment and interpreting it to mean something that calls for a more aggressive sort of reaction, you know, rather than something quite straightforward, which is Parliament has approved, we've even awarded one contract, or was it two? MTN has also been awarded a contract. So Parliament has approved, we've awarded 2 contracts. So that's what EC means when they say done deal. Not that they're trying to pick a fight, like, oh, we are not interested in hearing what you have to say.
But that's your interpretation. I mean, the guy was on Newsfile. Yeah, the guy was on Newsfile, and everybody heard him loud and clear.
Yes, so why has the NDC not taken that interpretation, which would have been more of a dialogue-friendly interpretation?
Well, their own posture. And quite honestly, we as a party, we feel deceived. Because, I mean, there were a few occasions where there were signals suggesting that the EC was thinking of, or perhaps as now, some of this commentary is beginning to become public, whether it is true or just a psychological way of getting us to believe that they are far advanced.
Yeah.
But even if they are far advanced, why must this have happened on the blind side of major stakeholders?
Right.
These are the issues we are raising. And when you do that, it gives us reason, as the Sheikh rightly said, to be suspicious. Because if you are not making us aware of what you are doing every step of the way and giving us the needed information so that we can also follow and verify that what indeed you say you are doing is what you are doing, and then one day we wake up to hear this and you now begin to tell us that you are advanced.
So,
in whose interest are you working?
Dr. Apaak, let me give another instance that makes some people suggest that the NDC in particular is simply fixing for a fight, if you will. Another example here.
Well, I don't think so.
Fair enough, and I'm sure you will explain this example to me as well. So if we can have that from the beginning. This is a news story on Joy News. Opposition political parties have issued a 1-week ultimatum to Eminent Advisory Committee to get the Electoral Commission to back down on its decision to compile a new voters register. So again, what has happened here is you've gone on the demonstration and then you've issued an ultimatum to the Eminent Advisory Committee. Not to the EC, but to the Eminent Advisory Committee. Now, bearing in mind that one of your arguments is that the Eminent Advisory Committee seems to be contradicted by the EC, or the EC seems to be enforcing its independence and autonomy in spite of the advice of the Eminent Advisory Committee. When you issue an ultimatum to a body that you don't think has sway over the EC, are you not simply setting it up for a failure so that you would have a justification to take further action?
Well, that is a very crafty way of putting it, but that is not our intent. That is not our intent at all. But we recognize, in spite of reservations by my own personal self, you know, about the need to put these people together, because we believe that they are the same people that we all have to run to, if and when, in fact, stalemates like we are currently witnessing come into being. But she has sort of cornered them, and they are supposed to advise her. But they made an advice that we thought was a good first step. She didn't give it effect. So we are now saying that we also recognize that you are the group of people that can advise her. So advise her, or advise the EC, not to personalize it that much, but we all know, I mean, who is the head honcho, and as far as the Electoral Commission is concerned. So advise her and her team. So we are also appealing to the advisory committee. The name
so
is
it's an appeal now, not an ultimatum.
The name, no, an ultimatum can also be an advice.
Right.
But if I advise you that if you don't shut your doors,
okay,
you know there are some criminals who have the intent of coming to raid you.
So once
it is an ultimatum.
So once the advisory committee advises the EC chair, they have met your ultimatum.
Well,
right?
They should advise and then let us know that they have done that.
Yes.
And
so
if
once they do
chooses
that,
not to give their advice an effect, then we understand that they have played their role.
But your ultimatum would have been met, because that's what your ultimatum is.
That is what I'm saying. But
it's to the advisory
committee. Yeah.
So once they do their job and advise her,
yes,
they've met your ultimatum, and the matter should die.
She can choose to give it effect or ignore them. But at least they would have met our expectation of them.
And then that matter would die. And then this whole matter
would die. But that doesn't take away our right to agitate for something that we believe in. And you see, you made an earlier statement, which I think we need to correct. Yes, we are the main opposition in Ghana today, by virtue of the fact that, you know, we have formed a minority in parliament, and the share numbers from the last election, they all demonstrate that we are the main opposition. But this resistance towards what we believe is a needless exercise at this point in time is not championed by the NDC alone. You know, yes, because we are a political party, and indeed we are the next government in waiting, naturally, being part of this coalition, we stand out.
Right.
But the argument that some are trying to use to diminish, or if you like, downplay the resistance of other independent entities in as far as this is concerned, I think is disingenuous. And it is important that we set the record straight. If it was a strict NDC, MPP, and then EC in the middle, that is a different ball game.
Right.
But you have about, you know, 18 CSOs. And as I said earlier, many of them, you can say, you know, allies of our political party. Also saying that based on the very same reasons that we see as justified to oppose the attempt to introduce a new register, they agree.
All right.
And it should not be taken for granted.
Indeed. And to be fair, I think I did make that point, but I asked what you would say to those who suggest that the NDC
so that is what I have said. That is not the NDC. This is a coalition of, you know,
parties,
people and entities.
Yeah. Okay.
Civil society groups.
Okay. Let's spend the time we have left on another important issue.
Yes.
Parliament, once again, is going through the Auditor General's report at committee level. Lots of interesting things springing up. We heard yesterday of some money spent on appeasing some gods.
Yes.
You know, and before that, though, this very important issue of some 69 receipts or so to justify spending to the tune of 126,000 Ghana cedis was requested from two witnesses in front of the. Are they called witnesses when they appear before the?
Yes. Or auditees, if you like.
Okay. So two auditees who then came back with some 9 receipts, which on scrutiny by the committee, it was discovered...
And by the auditors who were also present at the sitting.
That's right. It was discovered that these 9 were not the actual receipts that were audited. That there were some other receipts that these people had brought to the committee seeking to explain about 120,000 of the spending. The chairman of the committee, Jose Usu, is it?
No, it's
sorry, James
Aveji.
Aveji, forgive me, ordered their arrest. And of course, we know that Parliament, when they are scrutinizing the Auditor General's report, they have certain powers.
We do.
And those powers were exercised in this instance. So, 2 men who sought to mislead
and deceive
the Parliament of Ghana, from what the evidence suggests, have been arrested on the orders of Parliament. This is a first.
Yes, I would say it is the first. And I believe the good people of Ghana are excited, by and large, for seeing what happened. We all know that one of the challenges that we have as a nation continues to be corruption and the use and abuse and misuse of public resources. And as you know, it is the responsibility of the president, the executive president, to present his annual budget to the people's representatives. And then it is passed. Now, when it is passed, the law requires that we assess, verify, ascertain, and confirm whether the monies that were given to be used towards improving the conditions of the people were truly used for those purposes. Yeah. And so that is why the audit is always conducted. And of course, when it is conducted, the Constitution rightly points to the same entity that approved the budget, which is Parliament, to scrutinize, because we know what we approved and for what. To scrutinize and to see if the monies have been properly used. If they have not, then those whose actions or inactions may have caused deficiencies, embezzlement, misapplication, misrepresentation of resources are duly held accountable. Yeah. So that is what we've been doing. And only yesterday we finished 2016. So by the middle of next month, we will start 2017, 2018. But coming to the specific issue, this was a case to do with Sefi Akontomra, where they were supposed to have presented some 62 PVs to the auditors to justify an expenditure that cumulatively was 126,000.
So 62,
now,
not 60.
Yeah, 62. Now, when they came, that was last week, Thursday, we could see from the dialogue that the current district finance officer at the assembly wasn't really up to speed and couldn't justify or explain the expenditure. And he didn't have the PVs that the auditors failed to see and to scrutinize, which would have been a basis for them to be cleared, available at the sitting. Upon further interrogation and questioning, he indicated that he had made contact with the previous DFO who had been transferred to another assembly, and that given time, he will be able to get in touch with him, and he would probably know where those, if you like, invoices or PVs are stored, so that he can then retrieve them and then bring them to the Public Accounts Committee as a way of justifying the expenditure. So they were given time to do that. And the order was made that the previous DFO, under whose tenure the audit actually occurred, should also be invited. So on Monday, the two of them came, their DC and other officers. And when they were asked to present the evidence, they said that they were able to retrieve 9 out of the 62 files. And so the chair of the committee asked that those 9 PVs, of your like, invoices should be presented to the auditors for quick verification. And then we went on with the question. But very quickly, the auditors determined that the 9 PVs that they presented, the PV numbers were tampered with. You could actually see the evidence of using collecting fluid to rub off some of the numbers.
Really?
Yes. You could see that they had used the green pen to tick, indicating that the auditors had gone through the PVs. You could see that the figures that they had captured on those PVs were at variance with the figures that the auditors had in their books, but were waiting for the PVs to physically make the comparison. And on the spot, they were asked. And they insisted that these 9 PVs were of the 62 that they could not present. So leadership asked to see the PVs, and I was sitting by leadership. So I actually saw this with my own 2 eyes. So that raised the first alarm that they had forged. Now, when we did the numbers, it didn't add up. Just think about the maths, you know, just for the sake of analysis. 62 PVs
make up 100.
and the total amount was 126,000. You bring us 9 PVs out of the 62 PVs, and the cumulative amount that was indicated on the 9 PVs was 120,000.
Which means that 57 PVs
was to
account
account
6,000.
6,000. I mean, please, does this really add up? So the reason why the arrest was caused was because they are taking an oath to speak the truth and nothing but the truth, and they lied. 2, they had forged documents, and they had tampered with documents to deceive
public officials.
So the arrest didn't even have anything to do with the fact that the issue is still outstanding. It's the fact that
is still yet to
they
be
forged documents, they tampered with documents to deceive public officials. That is the reason why they were picked up. But the issue, the substantive issue, is still outstanding. But let me say that this is the new standard that we as a committee have decided. We are also going to invoke our full powers. And we have made it very clear that beginning with the 2017 audit report, which we are going to start looking at by the middle of next month, we are not going to have time to go through and ask for PV numbers and all of that. On the basis of the Supreme Court case, courtesy Occupy Ghana, straight up, once you are found to have been responsible for an infraction and there's a monetary value to it, by the Auditor General's powers, you are surcharged. So go and pay and come and tell us how much you have paid. If you don't agree, you go to court, like in the case of the senior minister who has gone to court to challenge. But if you come to the committee and lie, you bring forged documents, you can expect to be arrested. That we are not going to compromise.
So even if a person doesn't lie, they don't bring false documents, but they simply cannot answer the questions that the audit has raised, or they cannot explain. And to be fair, by the point that they are arriving at, they are coming to sit before Apaak, they have already had several chances to explain.
Exactly.
And have failed.
Exactly.
Which is why the court holds that an audit report from the Auditor General is perhaps the highest standard of evidence.
You're right.
There's no higher body to come and scrutinize the evidence of an audit report before it is accepted by court.
Certainly not.
So it should be the same, since the Parliament has the powers of a high court.
Yes, the committee has the powers of a high court.
Right.
That is why you have to swear an oath before.
That's right.
Before you.
So
you
face of this,
testimony.
the audit report that you are even presiding over is evidence.
That's right.
So a person who sits in front of you and cannot explain what the evidence says, cannot answer what the evidence is raising, should that person not immediately be arrested? Should that not be the process? You come, you sit down, you can't answer, you're arrested.
Well, we don't have the power to prosecute, but we can cause arrest as we did. But you must also remember that until the Occupy Ghana case, there was no clarity, particularly with the issue of surcharging. But since then, we are now intimately aware that the Auditor General can surcharge. And therefore, we as a committee would only have to seek follow-ups. But once you are surcharged, you are expected to pay. And then if you are unable to pay, that is where the other aspects of the law would have to be activated.
Right.
But one thing that I needed to put on record is that there's always been this excuse of, oh, this happened before my tenure. I wasn't the DFO. I wasn't in office. And then we would say, well, when you come, you inherit assets and liabilities. So we expect that your predecessor will have briefed you. They will be handing over notes and all of that to bring you up to speed. But what is going to happen beginning May is also a novelty. Because for the first time in many years, we are going to be sitting on the audited accounts of budgets presented by a government currently in power.
Right.
So the current DCs, the current ministers, the current heads of institutions and CEOs, you can come in front of us and say, this happened before you were in power.
Right.
So that is why we are signaling that there's going to be a lot more fireworks, because the excuse that I wasn't there, I don't know where the PVs are, I don't know how this expenditure came into being, that excuse, by virtue of the hard work that we have done to clear the backlog, we are going to now have real-time activity in as far as the work of the Public Accounts Committee is concerned. So Ghanaians should be prepared for a lot more exciting times in as far as our role of holding public officials accountable is concerned.
I want to say this on a personal level, that I feel that the committee's work should be congratulated in this instance. You've set a precedent that we want to see repeated more. You have power. You have power. Parliament
we would use it.
Yes, Parliament has
because
power. We like to see it used,
we
because
utilize it.
that is one of the few ways in which the executive can be checked.
And that is one of the few ways to fight corruption.
Indeed.
So we are going to activate.
So let me congratulate your chairman and the members of the committee on the good work done in this instance. And please, let's see more. I have got to thank you. I know that you wanted to say something about education.
Yes, about the Rosewood report.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yes.
We have just about a minute and a half.
A minute.
So
Very quickly. That's an appeal that I am making to the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources to publish the anti-Rosewood smuggling committee's report. The report was presented to him on the 30th of December 2019. We are in January. The committee itself used more time than it originally announced it was going to use. I have my questions about the integrity of the committee. They should prove me wrong by putting the report public, and let's all scrutinize it. And if the findings are findings that are germane and legitimate, I would admit that I was wrong. But on the other hand, if I find that most of my concerns about the committee being set up to cover up and to be a whitewash, Ghanaians would also know.
Right.
But
So,
I think it is in the interest of government to make that committee report available.
Okay.
And not for me, but for the people, because the people's resources was used to resource the committee in its work.
all right. Then that's a good call. I think the media can also follow up and see the status of that report and bring it to the attention of the public. Mr. Clement Apaak, I want
Always
to
a
thank you
pleasure.
very much.
Always a
I
pleasure.
certainly appreciate your time with us.